This is historian Stephen Ujifusa. This is an episode of Wet Lunch on the High Seas, recorded in Boston, Massachusetts. This is a city that has a tremendous meaning for me. I have a great love for Boston and adjacent Cambridge. It's a city that has influenced me and members of my family. And I am here for a series of book talks. Last night, I was just privileged to be part of the book rollout of my latest corporate history, Creative Capital, the First Two Centuries of J.M. Forbes and Company. This was a firm founded by the Boston entrepreneur John Murray Forbes in the 1830s, and it was started with $500,000 of capital that had been given to him to care for by the Chinese merchant Hao Qua, who was the mentor to John Murray Forbes and many other New Englanders who spent their time in China during the early 19th century. This book was the product of many years of research and collaboration with the partners of the Forbes firm and members of the Forbes family. Now, it's just extraordinarily grateful that so many people were there to be at the launch, and it was just an extraordinary evening. Just one of those examples where you put in a lot of time and you work with wonderful people, and then you get a wonderful result. Special thanks to Forbes partner Paul Elias, who was the editor of the book and also helped make this book a beautiful work of art. And it was definitely an interesting day, April 15th, when I visited the Harvard campus. That was the day that President Alan Garber said he would not comply with President Trump's demands about Harvard University, how it should comply in order to get federal funding. And Harvard has not been perfect, but I think it has taken a wonderful stand here. And I think this might be a chance for American higher education and the Democratic Party to rethink its approach and become a party that is much more realistic, broad-minded, practical. And this is a fight. This is a huge fight. And my time here has made me think a lot about what the city of Boston and Cambridge, their contributions to American higher education. Harvard, of course, is America's oldest university, and founded in 1636. It way predates the United States, and it was grounded in the Puritan love of books and learning, and it has produced more presidents than other universities. And during my time here, I came across a book that is a history of a school that has produced a lot of Harvard graduates, among them Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's called Views from the Circle, 75 Years of Groton School. And it was published just after World War II. The school was founded in the 1880s by the Reverend Endicott Peabody, who served as a longtime rector and was mentor to so many students there. And among the graduates of Groton School, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, by the way, said that Endicott Peabody was one of the most influential figures in his life, was a gentleman named George Cabot Lodge. George Cabot Lodge was the great-grandson of Senator Henry Cabot Lodge. Henry Cabot Lodge is not one of the good guys in my book, The Last Ships from Hamburg. He was co-founder of the Immigration Restriction League. He was the IRL's political mouthpiece on Capitol Hill. And he was a contradiction in many ways because he lobbied as a Republican senator for rights for African Americans, but he was very anti-immigrant, and he was instrumental in pushing through the Johnston-Reed Act, one of the last things he did before his death. But his great-grandson, George Cabot Lodge, is an example of how people and families can change with the times, can learn, can adapt. And I think the trauma of World War II, when everything was at stake for the United States, made George Cabot Lodge look beyond his narrow Boston confines. George Cabot Lodge, after graduating from Harvard, was a reporter. He worked in the U.S. Civil Service, and he was an example of a 1950s group of liberal Republicans who saw the big picture. And in this chapter, his contribution to this history of Groton, he writes about the 1950s that never before have Americans ever been more comfortable, nor more under threat. He notes that by this time, America and Russia had the power to destroy all of humanity 7 times over. So you had this contradiction of immense prosperity of the 1950s of manufacturing and business, while the rest of the world, especially Europe, have been devastated. But George Cabot Lodge was also very conscious of the fragility of that prosperity. And his sense of fragility and of duty was largely instilled in him during his time at Groton. And I think that this is something that American higher education, and I think the American center and American left, especially the center left, can take it as an example of this idea, and it's an old-fashioned one, of duty and humility in this very difficult time. And in his chapter, in this book, Views from the Circle, his contribution to this history of Groton School, George Cabot Lodge cites classical literature and other pieces of literature from the European canon that he takes as inspiration for this difficult time. One quote he cites is from Dostoevsky. Without a stable concept of the object of life, man would not be sent to go on living and would rather destroy himself than remain on earth, though he had bread in abundance. I think this is a wonderful quote that sums up a lot of what we're dealing with today. We are in a time of immense wealth, people who are worth billions and billions of dollars. And I think that is, a lot of this has been fueled by places like Harvard, the tech revolution. But we're also in a time of just tremendous unhappiness, of yearning for community. I think a lot of what we're dealing with right now is social media and loneliness, people not feeling grounded, not feeling a purpose in life. And I deeply feel that perhaps these universities such as Harvard can instill in the national educational and academic elite a new sense of what is the good life. Is it achievement? Is it money, security, status, or is it something else? And I would like to continue on with this, reading one more short excerpt from George Cabot Lodge's contributions to this book. First, there is Bertrand Russell's definition of the good life, a life inspired by love and guided by knowledge. And then there is the Greek conception of happiness, the exercise of vital powers along the lines of excellence, in a life affording them scope. So merging Dostoevsky, Russell, and the Greeks, Groton's task might be stated as follows: to teach a stable concept of the object of life, to impart the power and the will to love, and to offer the knowledge and to inspire the discipline necessary for the exercise of vital powers along lines of excellence. In measuring the urgency of this task, we should be mindful of the historical lesson that the achievements of any human organization, whether it be a nation or civilization, can be measured by the numbers of its members who are willing to put duty and sacrifice ahead of ease and personal gain. The rector's unforgettable admonition to put in more than you take out could have been the advice which would have saved the Roman, Greek, and many other civilizations from disaster. Today it can save our civilization and, given the nature of things, our world. There is no surer sign of the end than the substitution of ease for duty and selfish gain for sacrifice. My hope is that in this time of great uncertainty, we as a people, we as a nation, after a period of what appeared to be tremendous prosperity and wealth, of connection, social media, take a step back and ask, but have we put in more than we've taken out? Have we created a society where people are just want to take, and not give back? And George Cabot Lodge is an example of someone who came from a family that, his great grandfather had some very unsavory views. But he was an example of someone who learned and changed and decided to serve his nation and the world in a new time. And this quote, this excerpt also makes me think of a quote from the Bible that should be in the minds, whether you're religious or not, at these institutions like Harvard, that speaks a lot of wisdom. To those who much is given, much shall be required. And in order for America to survive, and I'm confident it will survive, it will have to be rethought in the years to come. What form will it take in? But we, historians, citizens, have to think, how do we put in more than we take out? This is historian Stephen Ujifusa. This is Wet Lunch on the High Seas. Thank you for listening.